Welcome to Declutter for Change, the podcast where we clear the visible and invisible clutter from your mind, body, soul, and home to make room for the life you actually want to live and love. I'm your host, Heather Clark. In this episode, we are joined by Sunita Kumar to explore how to move beyond generic business advice and use human design as a surgical tool for alignment. We dive into the evolutionary shifts that require us to shed old identities so we can step into our true CEO energy. Sunita is a business alchemist and clarity architect who works with seasoned entrepreneurs and leaders navigating invisible ceilings. With 14 years as an entrepreneur and background in operating engineer and strategic business, she combines system thinking with human design and intuitive guidance to diagnose root cause and fix imbalances in the strategy and identity of the business and the business owner. She is known for her precision language that lands. Her clients describe the work as psychic surgery that creates permanent shifts in one session.
Hello, Sunita. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. So I ask all of my guests at the beginning, how did you become a business strategist? Like, was it something that you managed to, when they asked, in kindergarten, they want, you want to be a doctor or a nurse or a lawyer or whatever. I don't remember business strategist being an option.
No, and definitely not business alchemist, which no one would have even heard of when I was in kindergarten, which would have been the 80s, early 80s. So my career has been varied, right? So I started out in corporate, many different types of careers in corporate, 15-year entrepreneur. And in that path, I've had like 4 different businesses, and they're all different business models. So my journey to this was about 3 years ago. And I started on a kind of a spiritual tip, and I got really into astrology, which I'm formally trained in. And my background's an MBA, so that's my background is business. And then I got into human design. I don't know, I learned of it maybe 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of got into it and using it for other people, maybe, I don't know, 3 years ago. And what I discovered, it kind of fell into it like a lot of entrepreneurs. I didn't really, I just I couldn't tell you. I think I knew it was good for business. I met someone at a business conference and she's like, "Oh, you do human design?" And I was like, "Not really." I mean, but she knew I had an MBA. And so she's like, "Oh yeah." And I helped her with her business. And I started working with a couple of women that it was just organic Facebook groups and this and that.
Yep.
And I was like, this is like the better wrench.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, there's strategy, and now this is really precise. I can get in and fix someone's business in an hour.
Like, oh, wow.
Like they've been spinning their wheels for years. And I say one thing in an hour. I've since learned it as part of my gift. That's why I call myself an alchemist. But I base a lot of what I do, I use that as a framework in the way that a surgeon would use an X-ray to provide a diagnosis. So he's using years of experience, which I do in business, but he's using the X-ray of that individual to isolate the diagnosis.
Yeah, so it's like a snapshot that you can look at and go, right. Yep, I see exactly where it is. Here we go, and let's, work around whatever it is that's stopping them. So what are like some common things that you have found that, like, specifically women, because that's usually the audience that is listening to my podcast, high achievers, they're really wanting to do their business, get it off the ground. They're at a plateau and they're like, how do I get it? So is there a common denominator, a common theme that you've seen that all of a sudden it's like, you got to let go of this?
To be honest, no, because it really depends on the stage of business. But I'll give you 2 that I feel like are going to be the right buckets for your group of folks. Perfect. One is they're operating not in their design, which I think people who are if your audience is at all familiar, they've heard the standard, the 4 types and the profiles and the kind of the overview that I know other guests have given your audience. And we operate energetically in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
When you apply to business, it gets a lot more complex than that. And there are specific ways that we are designed to sell, market, and influence.
Mm-hmm.
I gave an example to a talk recently. I said, let's pretend we have a salad bar outside, and then we had all the condiments and all the vegetables and all the dressings, and everyone brought their salad in here afterwards. None of your salads would be the same.
This is true. Yep.
So that is your human design for business. So is a general rule, the advice most people are given and most beginner entrepreneurs take is what the rules they're given. They're working with entry level coaches and they're applying one set of frameworks to their business.
Mhm.
I'm assuming entrepreneurs. That's who I work with, but
That's usually it's entrepreneurs a lot of the time, or
Okay.
like the actual, yeah.
and you
for
could
sure.
apply this to a career as well. But definitely when you're selling yourself, it's different. And so they're applying the wrong recipe. So that's one universal problem. Then when it comes to the people I normally work with who are a little bit advanced on their journey, they are operating out of an old identity.
Yep. I have seen that many. I actually, you can even see it online that they're doing that. They're still hanging on to that old identity that, like, especially, you know what I find a lot, and I know, well, I'm going to say with myself, I found the identity that I fought with is when I first became a mom.
Perfect example.
Huge, because I was used to being, a partner to somebody. Okay, we could do this, we could do that. It was like, okay, I'm that person, whatever, etc. Then I became a mom and I'm like, okay, yeah, but okay, yeah, no, oh yeah, right, all right, I have kids, right, I have children, I'm a mom, I'm that person that, does this. But then going from that to the business owner too, that was a different identity too that I had to let go of, is the fact of, yes, I'm a mom, but I'm a business person as well.
Exactly. So I'll actually give you an example from a client that'll illustrate this perfectly. So as a woman who was running an acupuncture clinic, very successful clinic, financially very successful. And she illustrated both of what we just talked about for different reasons. Mm-hmm. So her profile was a 3-5, which I believe one of your guests talked about the 3-5, the trial and error and the problem solver. I saw it in the notes. Okay. She was a 3.
Actually, that episode just went out as of our recording today, which is episode 45, I believe, was her episode.
I got it in my email today, so that's why I brought it up.
Oh, there you go. Perfect.
So I was like, this is perfect.
Yes,
so she's a 3-5. And so basically, I know your audience may not understand, but the 5 line, when it's unconscious, is the problem solver. This person's going to solve the problems. Projection. So her team was looking at her as a problem solver for everything. Front desk, other acupuncturists. If it was a problem, she needed to solve it. She didn't know it was unconscious to her. That line, when we say 3-5, that bottom line, it's like think an iceberg. It's underwater.
Okay.
So she didn't realize that she was taking on other people's projections. She just thought, like, I can't do anything right. I'm trying to do this. I can't do this. I can't be everyone.
Which is a lot of the audience and all of my clients. Like, so many people put their stuff onto them saying, okay, you got to figure this out, as opposed to them trying to trial and error themselves.
Exactly. And so that's part of her design. So we needed to understand that her staff is going to see her as that. And we need to make sure that there's communication in terms of hiring, in terms of the way she carries herself. She's like, okay, people are going to see me as the solution. What do I want to be the solution to? What problems are mine to solve and what problems aren't mine to solve? And that's a human statement. Human design just isolates it. So I could do that for her in 3 minutes, not 3 coaching sessions, 3 minutes, right? So that's what I mean. It's the speed and the precision. So that's one group. And the other thing is she'd been in the clinic for 20 years as an acupuncturist. And that time had come to an end. And it was time for her staff to do the clinic, and for her to sit and do strategy.
And
money.
So, yeah. Yep.
The identity of healer was so wrapped into who she was that she didn't want to let go of that healer identity and step into CEO energy.
Yeah, because that one for a lot of people is huge.
Yeah.
It is huge to go from somebody who is, let's just call it hands-on, versus somebody that has to step back and allow people to take, over that hands-on part of it. And it's very hard. And I've seen it with a lot of women. For me, there's certain things where I'm like, I want to still be hands-on, but then I'm like, no, step back. You're the business owner. You want to work on your business, not in your business.
It's very hard. And I think for especially people who identify as healers or spiritualists, like it's like a role they take on that is an identity, right? I'm hands-on healing. I'm in the room. It's my gift. I can sense what the client needs. It's not just a task a VA can do or whatever. So
Yes.
that identity. And here's the thing. The reason she was very successful, because a lot of acupuncturists aren't successful. She was very successful. It's her design, going back to the first part of my example, is she was designed to make money.
Oh, there you go.
She had a
where do we look for on that one?
Yeah, I know. I don't have that channel, but there's actually a channel in human design known as the money channel. She has that channel. So I was like, you like doing the numbers. You like doing the money. Some business,
Yep.
a lot of people don't like that. She likes running the numbers. She liked doing the marketing. I'm like, okay, well then do that.
Yeah, you're like, go with your design and go do that.
And you'll
Yeah.
succeed. And she felt guilty and this and that. So you add those two components. So those are two separate things, right? She could have just had a situation where her staff was projecting onto her. That's that 3-5 design operating out of design. And then she's operating in an old identity.
So what was it that finally got her to step away from the, like we called it, hands-on, and actually stepped into that CEO mindset, the CEO, like entire, personality?
So what happens with me is two aspects and this is where it's unique to me versus like a human design person. I meet people, this is part of my design. I meet people at evolutionary shifts. So when someone comes in my world, I don't care how they come to them, referral, random podcast, saw me on an event, they are on the verge of quitting the next level of their business, something they've always wanted to take on, step into their, in quotes, purpose, their thing, their whatever. And I am there at the right time as the messenger. So they are already poised to listen to me because they already know that what I'm saying is, I'm not fighting them.
Yeah. Well, and that's it. Like, that's why you use human design as a tool. Cause it's like, okay, I'm working literally with the way you were designed.
Yes.
Now I have a question that I didn't ask in the last podcast about human design is our businesses. So we're entrepreneurs, we open a business. Does that business have its own human design as well?
Technically, yes.
Okay. That's pretty
Technically,
cool.
yes. And all of your employees do as well.
So each time, so what is it based on? Like, I know the dates, like you actually register the business, that's the date you would take, the time, all that stuff. But with employees and staff or whatever, how would you calculate that?
So with employees, that's easy, right? Because think of human design as avatar.
Okay.
So there's a very big difference in like somebody you hand tasks to online, maybe who does something for you. Although this is relevant, but I've worked with people that they have like a business partner. So they're working hand in hand. So you need to make sure that that's a Lego and you're not the same puzzle piece trying to be the same puzzle piece.
Yes.
So the human design for business with teams, and that would literally be your design and her design or his design. And where is their synergies?
Gotcha. So it would be a combination of those designs to, yes.
Right. So,
Yes,
exactly. I just work with someone. I can give you an example, but what I was saying about they meet me at evolutionary shifts. So that was number one. The second one, which you asked, like what made her do, like, that's the alchemy piece. This is what I'm learning. It's that the way that I communicate, it's called a language. A client just said, who's a writer, said, you have language that lands. And I just had this aha like last week, which is that I change people's frequency.
Ooh, I love that.
So this is where the strategist, because I could call myself a business optimizer. I could call myself a strategist, and that would be accurate. The third piece is missing there. That what I just do is not strategy or optimization in the way that we define those words currently.
That's impressive. I love it.
Right.
I love that. Yeah.
So it's naming it in a certain way that her nervous system, her identity, her level of fed upness, or her readiness, depends on.
Yep. Depends on how she gets it.
And I say it with such surgical, and it's like a safe container, and it's not coachy, it's not projection, it's not my experience, it's not my opinion, it's true. And when somebody says something that is true in a way that is out of service, at the right time and you hired them and you asked for that opinion, it changes you.
Yeah. Well, it's like when you can hear the exact same podcast 4 different times, and each time you're hearing something different. And then one of those times, something like you said, just lands.
Right.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Or you could work with 4 different people, 4 different therapists, and then the 4th therapist solved your problem in a month.
Yep.
And everybody else, you just spun your wheels. That is what I would call what I do. Everyone's like, I spun my wheels for years. I wish I'd met you sooner. And this is not trying to like be a commercial. It's just literally what people say, because that is the power of precision.
Yep. Well, and the same like with clients. Like I just had a local client the other week, and she just said to me, she goes, I don't know how we just did this in the amount of hours we did. She goes, because it would have taken me at least 2 months to do this. And I was like, yep. I said, it's just a matter of, okay, where are we right now? Where do we want to go? And what is the most efficient path to get there? And she was just like, I'm just amazed at this. And that's the same thing. I'm sure you get that with your clients are like, what is going on? Like, how did you know that? But you're using the tools that you use.
Right.
And like I said earlier, you're using their exact design. So you're just talking their language.
Right. Right. And that strategy, and you could do human design for strategy. So what you just described, where you set up the plan and you said, okay, we're going to do this in a way that her brain would have not been able to do. Right. Because I hire organizers. So I don't operate that. I don't have that gene. Mm-hmm. So people who have that gene don't understand that people who don't have that gene don't have that gene.
Honestly, listen, I fell into this business as it is because I did not know that. I was not aware that this kind of thing didn't come natural, like just letting go of things, or like, seeing the big picture and breaking it down. Like that was not something that a lot of people, and I was like, really? Oh crap. All right, let's see if I can do something with this. Right.
Yeah. So I'll go to a quick side rant thing and I'll come back, is that when I moved out of my apartment in the Bay Area, I'm a minimalist by nature because I've lived in cities with small spaces. I don't own much. I don't like to have much. And I hired someone to pack my 1-bedroom apartment. When if you looked at what I had to pack, you would have said, I couldn't do it.
Because it's overwhelming for those.
It's overwhelming for me.
It's absolutely overwhelming. And that's, hence why I even have a business, because of like that. It's not like they can't do it. It's something to do with once you start thinking about it. And then it just becomes so overwhelmed that they're like, no, I just need to hire somebody to come in and help me with this. And that's it.
Yeah. It should take an hour. Yeah. And I'll tell you, I would have done it, but you want to know how I would have done it? It would have been in a bunch of IKEA bags in the car. And it wouldn't have been pretty, and it would have been at 3 a.m. and the movers would have been coming at 7 a.m. and nothing would have worked out as cleanly. If you looked at my storage unit, I mean, it was Jenga. It looked perfect because she had already set it up for the movers. And
and for her, that's just like, that was just a natural thing for her to do. She's like, oh, yep, yep, whatever. And you probably watched her like, I'm overwhelmed just watching you.
It was the best money I'd ever spent. And so that's an example of strategy, right? I guess that's an example of gift. So with what I do, you were to say, people say that to me. And so when I work with people initially in an alchemical phase, and then I do advisory. So this is current, like businesses change, right? But that's my current thing. So the advisory is, oh yeah, you want to do this, let's do this. And that's the strategy piece. But I've prepped them. It's kind of hard to describe. It's like they're ready, they're primed. We don't really have words for it, so that when the strategy lands, it's easy. It's like they're already different. Their identity is different. What was holding them back is different. Their fear is gone. Maybe it's fear of what people think if they're starting a YouTube channel, or they're in the wrong business because they're holding on to what they used to do in corporate, and that's not really what they want to do now, is an example.
You change, like you said earlier, I changed the frequency. So when like everyone talks about frequency of a radio station, you change them from 99.1 to 95.4. Like you change them to a totally different frequency, and you prepared them to churn that dial to get to that station. Yes.
Once the frequency is changed, the advising is easy because they're doing the work. I'm just guiding them. I'm consulting. I'm act as a consultant in that, and they could hire a lot of different consultants in that, which I mean, that's where the experience comes in. 15 years of entrepreneurship, I can see things 10 steps ahead of them. So it's easy, but that would never work. It just, it's so interesting to witness. And I'm still kind of wowed by seeing it, how someone's identity can shift in a month. Like she's like, I'm working with corporate women, I'm doing this. And I'm like, and we finally get to the point where no, that's not what you want to do. Yeah. You wanted to help an old version of yourself. Okay. But is that actually what your business to be?
Yeah.
Or she wants to save her old self.
And that is huge. That right there. Do you want to save? Because a lot of people who come online, they usually say, okay, how you can be so many steps ahead of the person, whatever. So if you're only so many steps ahead of the person, you're technically, like you said, you're just helping your past self. And when do you get out of that to actually help who you want, not who you think like you want to do, like help and stuff like that?
Exactly. And so my design is not someone who's supposed to help someone, right? Who was me. None of these women were me. I'm here to create visionary solutions that move humanity forward. That is the 5-1. The founder was a 5-1 of human design.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
So I just discovered this now, and this is the first podcast I've actually said it in these words about the frequency. So I need to figure out with somebody or myself, how do I describe this on Earth in 2026?
Yeah.
But it's what people need.
Yeah, it is, because of how much change is happening. I can just literally in the past 2.5 weeks alone, I know with just me, myself, I'm trying to fight a cough each time every day. I don't get sick. I don't have it. It was just a sore throat that turned into a cough. What was that? And I was like, okay, something's changing. Something is absolutely, I'm trying to myself purge something in me, whether it's my identity, whether it's a belief, whether it's how I move through the world. And everyone I talk to, as you were saying earlier, I want to burn it all down. I want to quit. All that so many people. And I've seen a lot of female entrepreneurs that have that feeling of, literally, I got just one yesterday. If I had a match in my hand right now, I would be burning it all down. I said, okay, so let's just keep you away from all of the matches. And then we had a discussion about it and stuff. And it turned out, obviously she hit a wall, and frustration and lack of sleep and all that regular human stuff. But again, it's the frequency, because then she's like, why do I want to declutter? I said, oh, because you're done with whatever the old part of you was. And that's where decluttering comes in too. When you have that desire to clear out your physical space, it's because something else has already changed in your mind, your body, and your soul.
Absolutely. And that includes clothing, wardrobe, makeup, jewelry, right? So I had a client who was like, I'm going to wear all my old dresses so that I can get rid of them. I'm like, just get rid of them. You already spent the money.
Wear them again just to get rid of them.
She had a schedule to be like, okay, I'm going to go through and wear them once every, I'm like, okay. Whatever works.
Each article of clothing doesn't have a tick on it saying you have to wear it 10 times before you can get rid of it.
Right. And this is an example of an overlap, right? So with work you do, and those two clients were identity, but it not necessarily that. It could be, so the women I'm working with, they're what I call seasoned entrepreneur. I like the word seasoned because it doesn't mean you've been in business for X number of years, you're making X number of money, which means nothing, or you've X number of followers. It's that you've been around the block. And so when I say it's what humanity needs, or let's say my tribe needs, it's that, just to be frank, and I've heard this, people say it, it's that, look, I work with a business coach for 6 months. It was a waste of time. A generic solution, spent money, questioned myself, influence, don't know my head from my butt. What's my niche? What are my gifts? I thought I was this, now I'm this. And so what we're doing is not working.
Yeah.
And so, it's going to be really unpopular for a lot of people, but we don't need to spend 6 months to change.
No, change can happen literally right now.
Yes. And that is going to put a lot of people out of a lot of money. And so this is a solution. It keeps people stuck, because it's like, you need to invest in yourself because you're not trying hard enough, and you need my level 2 program. And if you don't stay in the mastermind, and the mastermind becomes the identity because that's the peer circle. And it's just this nonsense.
Well, I find even the entrepreneur space, the online space, is in itself changing as well.
Yes, absolutely.
what you did 5, 10 years ago, even during the pandemic, especially like 6 years ago, 5 years ago, is not going to work the same as it does now. And what happened 10 years ago, 15 years ago in the online space is absolutely not the same as it is right now, especially with AI. Like that's the thing, when we have things like technology, like AI, that in itself changes the frequency of the space.
110%. 100%. And it makes people like what I do more valuable because AI can't do frequency.
Nope.
And I'll tell you, when I started my first online business, in case I used teleseminar. Okay.
Yes.
So yes, things have changed. We didn't even have video back then.
Oh, I remember that.
Video.
Yep. I do remember that.
It was an easier time.
It was. I was actually talking to my kids about how, he's like, how was it? Like, my son's about to be 18 this year. And it was just one of those things. He's like, how was it growing up in the 80s and 90s? I said, you know what? Honestly, I wish I could bring you guys back to the 80s and 90s just to see how different it is from now. And I'm like, I feel for the children now. I feel for the teens and the kids and all that growing up with everything. Because again, for me, I'm hard to trust the online videos and the online photos and all that stuff. But there's kids that are very impressionable that, as soon as you get something that's online and that's whatever, it's like, that's not me, or I didn't do that, I swear. It's like, listen, I get it. Now with AI, like the things that can be done. And so that frequency, because again, it depends on who has access to it and who's doing it. Because somebody who's not a kind person, we're going to call it that, using these techniques, that's a frequency put out into the world. And then people see that, whatever, they believe it, they think it as true, therefore they use it as their identity. And then you've got somebody who is kind, who puts these things out, uses it for good, and that's a totally more high vibe frequency that changes other people around them as well. So there's two totally different spectrums to this. That's like, what a world we live in. What a world we live in.
We're just at the start of it. I mean, the change is now, and it's going to be the next, I would say, 15 years.
Yep.
With AI, it will change every day. I mean,
AI literally changes from one moment to the next. Like, it can be 5 o'clock at one point, and then 6 o'clock, it's already changed.
But it can help with organization, maybe not in terms of what you do, which is holding people's hands and really, that subconscious overwhelm. No AI can do that. But like, I had a bunch of seeds and I have my garden, and I've learned the hard way that gardening is all about planning. And
yes, because you can't. I'm also a gardener too. That there's certain things you cannot plant with each other, or other things that you want to plant with each other, that they, even just the chemicals that they produce within the soil is different and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely. But yes, I love the fact that you're also trying the gardening too.
But I'm like a hot mess express gardener. And so I was like, okay, we're not going to do that this year. And so I had a very finite amount of time to get my garden up because I was late. And so I gave AI all the seeds, and I gave it the plot dimensions, and I said, map out the map so that I have an afternoon, I can get everything in. And so I basically followed it like a spreadsheet.
Yep.
Like a child. And I was like, what a world we live in. Like this was last summer. I don't even know what we're going to be able to do. Maybe it'll plant it for me this summer. Like, I don't even.
All of a sudden a robot comes out of your computer and starts planting it for you.
There's a Dr. Seuss book like that.
I do not want to see.
There's a Dr. Seuss book where these magical robots came and cleaned the house when the kids had made a mess.
Yep. I remember that actually. Yes.
So yeah.
So when it comes to any of the clients that come to you and stuff like that, and you've done the aha moment for them, they realize they're like, oh yeah, I really do need to let go of this part, change the frequency within the hour, within the day, or whatever it is. From there, what do you see as their next level of coming to you? So obviously they come to you the first time. Do they come to you a second time saying, okay, now that I've done this, I've done that, I'm ready for even more?
So I used to do single session work, and I don't anymore, because I use the single session to build a solution. And then what I have right now, which I'm not going to name because it could change in whatever I do, that is my intensive I do.
Gotcha.
So I have an
Okay.
intensive that I built off of how much time did people need? Did people really change in one? What was the best, right? The minimum amount of time I thought I needed with someone that I'm like, okay, if they want to go off on their own, they're good.
Yep.
And after that, I do advisory, which is a combination, but it's less hand-holding. It's more or less built because they're business owners. So they're impatient, right? They're like, let's get going.
Yeah.
And then prior to that, depending on when people find me, I may have something that's like an in-the-door audit.
Okay.
That's like a taste of work. It's more a taste of working with me to be like, because once people get a taste, they're like,
yeah, want to work with type thing.
I have to be experienced. So it's like, you could hear what I'm saying and it sounds it's one of those things that has to be experienced. And once it's experienced, you're like, I'm good, or okay, I want to move. So to your question, let's say right now, I found that it's like a couple of sessions, deep dives. I'm very good and I'm very fast.
Nice.
And then maybe like an integration session. And then the integration session, they're like, okay, they know if they want to continue on with the advisory, which, they got to be at a certain level for that to be worthwhile for them.
Yep.
Or they're like, I'm good now. I'm going to, take this and run with it. That's kind of where I'm at in the current stage of what I do. But I want to say, because a woman got a little scared when I talked to her, she was a referral and she's like, well, that must be really intense. Like thinking it's like an energy clearing. Like I'm doing 75 minutes of like taking out, like, cause like people don't understand, like, how are you different in an hour? Yep. They think I'm like doing an exorcism on them or something. It also makes people, I realize it makes people afraid.
Need an exorcism. That's a whole different, business all on its own.
I think I'm projecting on but I feel like I made her afraid, like too much, too fast.
Yeah. Well, there are some people that they can't do the immediate intensives. I've noticed that as well. Like there's certain people that, no, I'm better off doing the 15 minutes every day, as a routine versus the no, let's get it done.
Right. Yeah. And I actually schedule my sessions a month apart. Like I have a 2-session intensive. It's like a couple of session intensive. Again, at the time of this recording, that month is the work.
Yeah.
Because the body is integrating. And then the way that human design is once you start living your design, life will jut up against you and will give you an opportunity in that month to test the new you. And then you will pass the test. And then when you come the second time, you're different. And it's not frequency, it's neuroscience. So I gave this example on another podcast. If I tell a woman you're designed to speak from your intuition, sounds generic, but she had a very specific configuration. She always thought she had to script, she had to plan, perfect. I said, we're going to do this. The next day she was on a panel. She spoke from her intuition. She did what I said, magnetized people. Not, oh, that was great. Thanks for speaking. Like, what's your website? How do I work with you? Who are you? Are you available next week? We have a volunteer position. Okay. Her sense of herself has changed.
Well, because when you get that kind of feedback from something that you have never done before, and you do it that one time or whatever, and all of a sudden that feedback is so immediate, it's just like, oh, okay, this is different. I like this. Now, how do I keep this going? Because I find that a lot of the women also doubt. Yeah, it happened. But then they overthink, they overplan, they overdo everything to a point where they talk themselves out of doing it.
Right. And that's a little bit of the frequency change. That is permanent. So they're not going to go back. You change the dial, you've changed them. The wrench, I call myself like a wrench. I've started thinking of like how I could say the piano tuner. Like, it's kind of permanent. It's not permanent, but it is. But the point is like our self-identity, that's not woo, that's neuroscience, right? We see ourselves differently. We take a different action, we get a different result, right?
It changes the actual chemicals in the brain. Yeah.
If you got on a sales call with someone and you're like, my stuff is, and your brain's telling you my stuff is only worth $100. My stuff is only worth $100. And your business coach said, you're going to tell that person that your stuff is $1,000.
Yep.
And you're like, my rate is $1,000. She's like, great. When can you get started? You've changed right there.
Yep.
You are now $1,000.
Yep. Because if you did it once, you can do it again. And not only that, the more you do that,
Right.
The more like she spoke from her intuition and stuff, the more she literally attracts those $1,000 people versus the $100 people.
Right. Because her sense of identity has changed. Her frequency has changed. All the other stuff we don't understand because we're humans, or like how we attract things in ways that, like when people clean their houses or people work with you, they get opportunities, right? They open up a pathway that is not something you could technically explain.
Oh, and that's it. Like, try to explain, like, hey, by the time like you do this with your hands and you do all that stuff, yeah, your brain's already cleared out a bit more, and then your emotions come through. It's like, yeah, you know what? Let's just do it, and then you'll understand and you'll experience it, and that's when it's like, I get it.
Right. So that it takes a while to settle into the new thing, but it's not like energy healing. It's not like you're gonna have a bad stomach. It's not like I've had energy healing when I was like on the toilet for 2 days. It's not like that. It's like, I don't know. Here it is that some of the women I'm working with, again, my audience is 40 plus. So a lot of what I say to them is not like new.
Yep.
It's just naming what they always felt about themselves. It's someone else. They have words for it now.
Yeah. It's like you read what their feelings were trying to say.
Yeah. Or like misalignment. I call it energetic imbalance, misalignment. So, I had a client, she's a 4-6. The details don't matter. That particular person is very much a networker.
Okay.
They're alumni, people they've worked with in the past, coworkers, what have you. And her business coach was having her do all this stuff she didn't want to do, like speaking gigs, and you have to be out there on social media. Yes. Yeah. Social media, speaking, all these things. She didn't want to do any of that. And I was like, where do you get your clients? And she's like, my old colleagues. Okay. It's like she already knew what I said to her. I'm like, you are meant to work your network. You're meant to be a small fish in a big pond. You're not meant to be, a big fish in a small pond. Yep. You're not meant to be, you don't have to be. You can do whatever you want, but if you don't want to be out there
and try and put yourself out to like 1,000 new faces, new people, new conversations, then yeah, you don't have to.
Right. So that's an example of a permission slip. I already told her what she knew. And she's like, I feel so much energized by my work. I know to this. I'm like, And then we looked at her superpowers and I said, your superpowers are crisis management. So she was a communications consultant. She ran a communications agency. And this was like 3 years ago. And I said, honey, AI is coming.
Yeah.
So this was 2023. I said this to her. And I said, but what you do when the Zoom call ends, when they get on the phone and you talk them off the ledge.
Yep.
And she didn't realize that everyone looked at her as a rock because she'd gone through a lot in life and she'd handled it with just like a rock. And I was like,
because that kind of handling was normal to her.
That was normal to her. She didn't realize it was a gift. Yep. And so I was like, lean into that. You are going to make yourself indispensable.
Yes.
That is not something they can AI. They cannot get a lower person from offshore to do that. That you are now a strategic partner.
Yep.
And so that is an example of how human design is like, it's your gifts, it's how you move through the world. It's really the whole package.
And like when I first learned about human design, and this was like years ago, I was like, oh yeah, this is kind of cool. Like, obviously I'm reading a whole bunch of like letters and numbers and this, that, and I was like, all right, whatever. But the more I learned about it and the more that like I'm a sacral. So I found out that I'm a 3-6. So I think on the podcast that I did, I thought I was a 3-5, but I'm actually a 3-6 and manifesting generator and sacral. Like, so there'd been times that I didn't even realize that that's what it was, that I was like, oh yeah, no, let's do this. Because I was like, like my body just was like, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
And then when I get frustrated, like I usually like now when I know that I'm started doing something or I'm working on something and I start getting frustrated, I said, okay, you need to walk away. I said, because nothing good is going to come out of this.
Right.
Because that's my not self, is when I'm frustrated, I'm not in myself. So I'm like, nope, whatever this is. I said, if I have to hand it off to somebody else for a bit and then it comes back to me, that's fine. But learning that about me and how I work within my own business was such a huge combination. And then I love the fact of like, even, with the employees and stuff like that, because I know there's a bunch of, back in the day, they used to do the 16 personalities, and they used to try and, an introvert worked with an extrovert, with, somebody who was very technical, worked with somebody who was, more emotional based and stuff like that, so that balanced each other out. So what kind of combinations do you see that work well together in the work environment or business environment?
I mean, there are technically ones that are harmonic. I don't like to do that because human design is a personal development system applied to business. And one of the things that I've seen is it's a market now. We talked about marketing. Everything's a market now. Everyone's got the formula for the human design. This is your wealth placement. This is your gate to magnetize your, okay, no. But prime example is I'm a 5-1. So we have no numbers in common. So let's pretend we're business partners.
Yep.
You're going to be a lot faster than me. I'm a pure generator. I'm not going to work like you. And I don't mean in terms of like work ethic. I mean that you're just going to move at a different pace. You're going to decide we're going to do this today. And by 2 p.m. you've done it. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm a 1 line. Let me research first. What's the best? Okay. We're going to start a podcast.
Research and then give it to me and then we'll get it done.
We're starting a podcast. Okay, great. I'm spending 2 days researching all of the hosts. What options do the hosts have? How long, what do the reviews say about the hosts? Do some of the hosts work on VPN? What about that? What are the features? Do that, like Buzzsprout, which is my host, has a text me feature. What has that? Okay, what is the annual cost? And you're like,
I've already recorded 3 episodes.
Right. And I'm like, you picked the wrong podcast host and now we have to start over. So, okay. So that is an example of us. Now, if I'm working for you, different dynamic.
Yep.
But also you could leverage me in the right way. If you know that I'm a researcher.
If I want to start a podcast, can you go do ABC, XYZ? And when you're done that, give me the findings and then I would work from there.
Right. But I'm a 5-1, which means I'm heretic. I'm going to find the better wrench. So if we're a business partner, you're like, well, my business coach told me to do it this way. And I'm like, that way sucks because we haven't, that's not where the future is going. The future is this. And you're going to put us out of business in 2 years because you're listening to someone giving us tactics for 2024. That takes trust. You would have had to work together for a while for you to see the gift of that.
Yep.
But it's knowing that I will not do something just to do it. That you're going to, if I'm your spouse, I'm your business partner, you're going to understand me a lot better.
Yep.
I'm not stubborn. I'm not listening to you. I actually want us to succeed. I just don't think this is the right solution to the problem.
Gotcha. Whereas I know I'm somebody who has to do it in order to learn. And then once I've learned that, okay, so this is, column A, B, and C. So I've learned all those. So there's 3 different ways I've done something. C is the most efficient that I have found in majority of the situations. So that's the one that I'm going to recommend versus doing B or A. But I can't recommend C unless I've tried A and B myself. Like I'm a hands-on, I have to learn that. And I've found that out in my human design that that's what I do.
Right.
And like, that's why I went through a lot of stuff in my life. I gotcha.
Right. And if I'm trying to talk that out of you, like, can you why are you wasting time doing all those things? Like, why can't you just make up, right? So now you're frustrated, you don't feel seen, but think about the opposite. If I see you and you see me.
Yeah.
Think about the power of this in teams in corporate America. I mean,
this is huge.
Huge. I mean, the way we're doing everything is so wrong. It's so backwards. And
let's just be honest about that. And I'm hoping that it goes a little more forward with bringing this kind of technique into the corporate world, because then maybe people might not hate it as much as they do.
A lot of people who discovered human design said, if I had understood my design, I might have stayed.
Yeah.
Especially women in really senior positions who are making a lot of money. Yep. Not that that's everything, but they might have not been an entrepreneur. They might have stayed with the package, so, we were trying to fight something, and all of my clients are sacral beings. Math, 70%, but frequency. And we have a really hard time doing work that drains us, and we have a really hard time, eventually we're going to burn out.
Yep.
And something's got to give. And I think that's what happens to a lot of women in corporate America, in high achieving women, in women at a certain level.
Because we take on so much and we think, okay, well, I'm just going to learn one more thing. I'm going to do one more thing. And that's the breaking point. And then you get the burnout, you get I don't even know who I am anymore. And it's such an identity crisis too for some women, because it's like, once you get to that point, you think, oh, I'm the problem. Not all of the things I tried to do that weren't part of something I should have done. But they blame themselves, because that's what we do. We blame ourselves. We take the guilt, we take the shame, we take all that stuff, because that's just how we are as women.
Yes. And that client that I gave the example of, completely unrelated, because now she's an entrepreneur who works with entrepreneurs. We got her out of that I'm going to help corporate women. She wanted to help herself because that was her.
Mm-hmm.
She was a senior VP. She left because she couldn't handle it anymore. And she wanted to help the women in her position who are exactly what you described.
Yeah.
And I probably wouldn't have recognized that unless I work with her, because I don't work with corporate women for the most part. But when you describe what she used, that was what she was described.
Because I have seen it with a lot of women that I have, whether I've worked with it or my clients have worked with, and they said, I've got clients that, this is what they do. I'm like, yeah, because that's what we do as women. We try and do it all because we're trying to make some sort of proof. We're trying to prove ourselves, especially in corporate, which, no offense, is a very male dominant industry. And so as women, we're trying to prove ourselves. So when we can't, then we take on that guilt. So we think we have to do more, and we have to do more, and we have to do more. But then we burn out completely. Like, I'm not even talking like when people say, oh, I burnt out. No. Burnout is literally, you cannot get yourself out of bed to even shower. It is on the same frequency level as depression. And people don't understand that. Like, I don't like how social media has taken burnout to be just some like catchphrase, because when you are truly at that stage of a clinical burnout, it is extreme and I actually compare it to postpartum depression as well. It's that burnout of motherhood. And that's what postpartum depression is. Well, burnout of corporate world is like a depression as well.
Absolutely. And I work with a corporate person one time, and that was when I realized that maybe this isn't the right, I'm not, never say never, but it was a client referral to a sister. And so I work with her, and she's a sacral being. And I said, look, when the sacral runs out of battery, it runs out of battery. And I said, what is your financial situation? She's a single mom. I said, okay, how do we get you so that until you get to the next good job, we don't run out the car? I said, do you understand when the car runs out of gas, it's going to be on the side of the road? Because she was high performer, right? And she's like, okay, well, I've got this vacation scheduled in October. So what I'll do is I'll pencil in. I was like, because I was like, what do you do that, is going to feed you now? And I was like, I had to get it out of her, photography or nature photography, something that you can do to juice you up. Literally, let's juice you on the weekends or in the morning, so that we're keeping that sacral moving until you figure out what's next. She's like, oh yeah. I'll schedule in to look at that art. I got some vacation time in a couple months. Then I'll take that art. I was like, okay.
In a couple months, you might already be too far.
Your car is going to be off the road. And she probably was in a financial position to quit for a couple of months. So she probably would just snap.
Yeah.
Or underperform at work or whatever. And so we talk ourselves out of, this stuff. And that's not the world I'm in. I'm in the world of entrepreneur burnout. And the world of entrepreneur burnout, somebody literally asked me this the other day. You think, oh, I'm overworking all the time. I'm working all the time. That's what people think on social media. I'm working 24 hours a day, the hustle culture, the Alex Hormozy, whatever. That's one. The masculine burnout. I pride myself on how many hours I get done in a day. The burnout, I would say, that I see is they're trying to sell and market themselves outside of their design. So I hate, I'm not built for short form. I'm built for long form. I'm a 5'1". I do Substack. I do podcasts. I have my own podcast. I might hire someone to clip stuff up. Okay, fine. But you put me on TikTok?
Listen, I tried TikTok. A split second.
I mean, it's a generational thing, I'm sure, but I'm here for depth. I'm here for conversations like this. My gift is going to shine in conversations like this, and I'm going to hate it.
Yeah.
I'm not built for that. And so that brings in my astrological chart, which I also bring in with my clients. I bring in their astrological chart and their human design chart, which is different. It's not the same.
Yes.
People
People can be very similar and stuff. Yeah.
No, they're not. But I got to say this because you gave that example, is that, you said the profile lines. We've talked about the profile lines, and people love the profile lines, and it's really great to start. It's really easy. It's really great for DIY. But I have a podcast episode on my podcast. It's called Your Profile is Not Your Positioning. And here's why. So I can relate to you, who's the 3-6, and I can relate to my client who's a 3-5. And here's why, because I have a majority of 3 lines. I'm a 5-1 with a majority of 3 lines. So in many ways, I operate in the world as a 3 line. So when I build my business and I built my solutions, you asked me about how I work with people. I said, well, I tried 1 session, then I decided 2 sessions. And then, okay, what was the intake form? And then that happened by doing.
Yep.
And entrepreneurship is trial and error, but that is built into my business model. That I can pivot and navigate and not lock myself in too much, knowing that the work I'm going to do is evolve and I'm going to learn and build as I go.
Well, and the world around you evolves too. So like you said earlier, you have to adjust. Otherwise, you're going to fall behind and you're going to not have a business anymore.
Right. And the 3 line is considered the entrepreneur line because I don't care who you are. I don't care if you've ever heard of human design. Entrepreneurship is jutting up against reality and testing. Right.
And that is also a proven I basically called myself unemployable from now on, like, because it's like, I'm going to say this, and I'm an explicit podcast, so it's okay. I said to the girl yesterday who was saying, I want to burn it all down. She might get a job, whatever. I said, okay, that's cool. Like, go ahead. Like, if that's what you need to do, go ahead. Like, I've done that in the past and stuff like that, just to, have that little bit of extra income so that I was calmed down. But I said, but also know that you're going to have to ask permission to go take a piss. And she was like, well, when you put it that way, I was like, that's how I put it to myself, because I was like, I had to put it such an extreme. Like, what is the most inconvenient thing I can think about if I was to go back to the workplace as a typical employee? And that was mine. And I was like, that's where I was like, okay, no, entrepreneurship. That is it. Like, owning your own business. I have 2 businesses. I have the local and the online. I'm like, I couldn't do it any other way. Now that I see that, and obviously I'm working in my design. So now that you've just said that, I'm just not going to ever question it.
And manifesting generator also, they're a little bit like, they're unique in that also they're a little bit more, I don't want to say stubborn. That's not the right word. English isn't the right word. They're a little bit more difficult. They operate on their own drummer. I have a lot of MG clients.
Like black sheep kind of.
Yeah, they just move a little faster than the rest of the world. And so it's not that they're unemployable, but you put a lot of combinations together. You got the 3, they got the MG, you got a lot of probably 10 other placements in your chart that are not just that, because there's a lot of MGs. There's a lot of 3 lines, right? There are a lot of 3 lines who have jobs, but they're, I'm sure there's many elements of you that it's like, no, it's just, if you can at all do it without being, in a situation, you're going to figure out how to.
Well, and the other thing is, when I was employed, I was always management. Like, there was no, I can just be at, like, even my manager, when I went back just while I was going through my divorce and stuff like that, I went back and just said, listen, I just need another job just to, like, give me that extra bit of whatever. And I was like, I just want to be a crew member. And he's like, no, you're not being a crew member. He goes, I am not putting your skills as a crew member. You will drive yourself nuts. He goes, at least just be just a shift manager. I was like, fine. But that's the thing. All of my positions have always had some sort of leadership role.
Right. You can't. Like, if I ever go back to doing something, because I do fractional consulting work with big companies. That's what I did before, as I build out my solutions. And because I know as a 1 line, I'm going to build slowly. So it's like, I'm going to build it my way. It's not this hustle culture. If you're not all into entrepreneurship, it's like, I've been an entrepreneur for 15 years. I don't care. Like, you become so immune to the noise when you understand yourself. It is unbelievable. That is a big part of it, because, clutter can come from so many different angles. It can come from mental clutter, and mental clutter is noise. My podcast is Clear Signal, and I'm only mentioning it because it's literally a podcast I created because I wanted to talk about how there's so much noise out there. That was literally why I created it.
Well, isn't that the case though? Like a lot of the podcasts, I was like, okay, how do I get, my stuff out, that it's not just about the physical stuff, that it is about the mind, that it is about the body. I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'm doing the podcast.
I guess I got a podcast now. I did not have that on my radar. I did not, but I was like, the stuff out here is crap. I was like, you got something to say, and you're like, someone needs to say it. All right, I'll do it.
You're like, all right, I guess I'm the one saying it.
I got nothing else to do. Let me start a podcast. Yeah.
But yes, the one podcast episode that you did talk about with the profile is not positioning. I will get the link from you from that one.
Okay. Yeah.
And we'll put that in the show notes because I will link back to your podcast, because that one, I know a lot of people, because, they're going to be interested in this stuff for sure. There's no doubt about this. And I know we can go on forever about this, because I'm like, okay, I want to have this conversation even longer, but I do want to respect the listeners as well, as we have come to about an hour now. So I'd like to ask you, for the listeners, what is one thing for their mind, their body, their soul, and their home that they can take home as a tip today, whether it's the human design, the astrology, the business part of it, that they can take home as a lesson, or if they get nothing else from this podcast, which I know they won't, but if it was just those, what would you give?
So I have one tip for each. Is that how I do this? Okay. So for the mind, related to what we just talked about, or it doesn't have to be human design, the shoulds around decision making. So, Tony Robbins says this, make a decision. And we have a lot of clutter because we are unwilling to make a decision and stick to a decision.
Yep. And that's where the decision fatigue, which was a podcast episode that we did as well, that's also where that comes in too.
Right. So that would be mind. And the next one, which would be body.
Mm-hmm.
So body is, so I also have a background in functional medicine. It's not what I do, but I would say saunas. We talk about clearing energy. Saunas are great because when you sweat, you actually release hormones and you release metals. And so that's a different kind of release. You could do exercise as well, if that's not your thing, or a bath, but using the body as a way to let go, physically let go.
Beautiful.
Soul is holding on to the old version of your identity. And that identity comes with expectations. And it's a literal skeleton in your closet that you need to give to Goodwill. Okay.
I love that.
And home, I would say, I am not an expert with the decluttering, but, creating a ritual around the home. So I mentioned salt. It's an ancient Indian practice where you put salt down on the carpets and you vacuum. Mm-hmm. And so you could create a ritual around decluttering, or a ritual around having an altar, or your money's corner, or, make it a practice.
Beautiful. I love that. And yes, as I was going to say, salt is very much a practice in this household, protection otherwise, and etc. So I absolutely love that. And I know there's a few listeners, at least a few, that do also have rituals that they do for the house, and adding salt, I'm sure, is one of those. So before I let you go, what is one last tip, quote, life hack that you might have, that you want the listeners, that you're thinking, you know what, I have one last thing to say to them before I go?
I would say a quote. It's a very common quote, but the quote from Steve Jobs: "You cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking backwards." And so I think, people hold on to old identities, old jobs, old this or that, because they don't know what's next. And it's like, okay, this was part of the chapter. This was a chapter of the story.
Mm-hmm.
And that it's okay to release this chapter because I'm going to step into the next chapter, and accepting that the whole chapter and the whole story is not going to make sense until the end.
Beautiful. I absolutely love that. That is fantastic. I was literally picturing books on a bookshelf when you were saying that. So that's beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us today. And like I said, I will get all your links. All of her links will be in the show notes as well, listeners, and especially that podcast episode that she had mentioned as well. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.